Okay, well, I will call us to order by my watch. It is now 7. That's official. So we start with minutes of our last meeting.
And I do have some copies of the minutes, if anybody needs those. Can I look,
Sure, we'll share.
yeah, if there are any notes I need to mark down.
That it?
You can share here, and I read it.
He said the meeting was already.
Geez, it tells that I was late.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Two
really,
demerits.
Jeez Louise.
That's pretty funny.
It says that I'm late. I was late and exactly what time I was late.
It's a little
I'm
excessive.
sorry, I
Clarifies
meant,
late. I
meant
like
to
that.
get
That, for me,
it's
is
7:01.
horrible. I'm like, oh.
I did not put that there.
So I have a correction.
Okay,
Page 2, second paragraph, Strange stated, second line, he should have at least 2 meetings for deliberation, not of deliberation. Doesn't make any sense.
okay.
Please and thank you.
Which, okay, so second paragraph,
Second line,
Last word.
oh,
meetings for instead of meetings of deliberation.
Geez, I don't remember the meeting being that long.
That's hot.
while everyone's looking these over, I'll just let you know, starting the next meeting, Alexandra Hall will be the new recording secretary for the board.
You don't have any email or anything on her phone?
I will, hold on,
Who did these minutes?
Keith
These are good.
did it.
Very comprehensive.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Noted.
And a bit anal.
I did not say that.
Doesn't it start that they're not verbatim, and then it's got every single word in there?
Um,
Is Alexandria?
Alexandra,
Dra.
Alexandra, and hold on, I'm sure that,
And I was going to ask for an email.
yeah, I'm looking it up.
On your occasion, I have email.
Are you ready?
I've heard that.
Hang on.
AH9602@hotmail.com. I hope everybody.
Everybody at home
knows
get that?
Please do not send Alexandra solicited emails.
What's her phone number while we're at it? And do we have her PIN?
Yes, she does.
Our mother's maiden name.
Lions Club.
That's where he's going.
You have to finish it.
Okay. So could I have,
All fair, love, and law.
can I have a motion to accept with amendment?
So moved.
Second.
Hearing no other changes, all in favor?
Who's Keith Eldridge?
Okay. So,
Who is he?
Yeah.
He's our principal clerk.
Okay. Oh, when I call, do I talk to him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
so that's 6 yes, 1 abstention for the record.
Oh, who abstained? Dennis? Okay.
Okay, thank you. So, the purpose of this meeting is the next bullet point, main purpose, and that is to take our conversation that we had last meeting, which the minutes just reviewed for us, and to try to see if we can come up with some clearer policies for operation so that there's less confusion, particularly with applications that are coming in, and particularly with pre-applications, so people have a better idea of the criteria so they can choose or not choose to come forward, and if they come forward, they're better able to prepare their applications. So one way I was thinking of how do we approach this. One way is to put ourselves in the position of an applicant and to start thinking about how that individual would see this board and what we could do to be helpful as they come forward with ideas or with a request. We have 3 different areas of jurisdiction. Do you want to pick one? Historical.
Historical is the one that really has the criteria, and it's like stuff coming into the thrift store. We don't accept these, we accept these. Well, what do we accept? We let them know that if they're looking to renovate a historic building, that we're not gonna be doing alterations to the interior, for instance. And so what we can do, and what we can't do would seem to be a reasonable, in plain English, 1, 2, 3, bullets. We are not allowed by law to do the following. And that would prevent people from even filling it out if that's what they want to do,
Right, I think we've talked about this, but the only condition under which we could deal with interior is if the building itself is like a museum. It's historical in its inside and outside, right?
Jim, could I just ask for clarification? Because I kind of thought that where the discussion would be going tonight was at a higher level based on the discussion we had at the last meeting. And this would be a subsequent conversation going into kind of then, so, and I had made copies of the key points. I think everybody received a copy of these, but I
Right.
did print copies for everyone tonight. So that was kind of what I thought the
Okay.
discussion was going to revolve around. What are the key points? Kind of go through, prioritize, and then work on, how the board works. And then get into kind of the detail on the application process.
Well, I wasn't suggesting that we go through the application process. I'm trying to say what information would be useful, what kinds of guiding policies would be useful for someone looking to us for sources of funding. Otherwise, it's rather a nebulous thing, and we're used to talking and dealing the way we're dealing. We kind of know what we're doing, other people don't. How do we make that clear?
I would,
Go ahead.
I would disagree. I think things have gotten a little nebulous around here. And part of the reason is there's a really short window of opportunity when somebody comes in and makes a presentation and we say, do thus and so. So that when they come back, the plan is still sort of half-baked. We don't know oftentimes, really how much it's going to cost. We'll have a ballpark figure, but nothing like what we used to get, where we'd have a lot more documentation. And I would just recommend maybe starting a little bit earlier with the initial process, which would then give people detailed instructions on how to come forward for that final presentation, which would then give us more data to look at.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, if I may, I don't think the issue was confusion on the part of the applicants. I think our issues are I don't know, threefold. One, where do we want to go as a commission? We talked about how money's limited, and what I've been barking about for years. I think if someone's coming in and it's a construction project of any type, I think there needs to be plans, complete specifications, not a you know, not an estimate done by Joe's Electric the week before. And do we want them to have some skin in the game? And I think the most important part, what we've really been lacking is deliberation on this board. You know, we had a great conversation here a month ago, or, you know, at our last meeting. You know, that's really where I think everything should and can be vetted out.
Well, I think we'd be better able to deliberate if we got the first part of what you suggested.
Yeah,
You
no,
know.
and then there's a bigger picture. Like, look at this year. There's 2 projects that are basically being managed by town hall staff, and which I'm not saying that's good or bad, but that's an expensive way to do things. And not because of staff, but because of when the town starts to build things. And do we want to go that way? And what do we do when someone comes in for a project and we're gonna okay the engineering or the architecture of it? Well, then that almost, you know, that puts us in a tough position to say no to that project when the construction comes around. So we really need to look at it as a much bigger picture, as a whole, both the design, the schematic, the design, construction documents, and construction cost, and look, you know, how many years are we talking, and do we really want to get in bed with that project? And I think that is really where we need to sharpen our pencil and sharpen our focus, because, you know, not to beat a dead horse, but substandard work has gone through, and things that we told were going to be done haven't been done, but yet they got paid top dollar.
Well, I think, which I had mentioned at our last meeting, having the requirement of someone to have to come back and a year later and provide a meeting for accountability as what they did. Perhaps it was still in progress, but what was done so far, because none of us, I mean, I've been on the board for a few years now, and I don't know what was done. I really don't. I mean, they come and go.
That's something that's changed since you've been here, because when we first got started, the composing boards would bring in reports. And I guess maybe in the early years it was mostly historical buildings. So the Historical Commission would come in with documents on Unity Church. Unity Church would make a presentation. And yeah, that's absolutely the best way to go. I agree with you 100%. But it's not something new, it's something that we have
Well, and I
just
think
not
that just
followed
can
up
become
on.
a requirement as part of, and I would think that the applicant would be excited. I mean, certainly if for me to come back and present about Alley's Park, I mean, it would be exciting for me to do so. So I think that that's one way to start to chisel out and address, because it adds a level of accountability that you have to be on the other end of it. In terms of what was talked about with Jim, with the sort of nebulous feeling about the application process, there isn't a real, I will agree with that. I mean, I sat in the position of the applicant's role, if you will, and even having been on the board for, you know, not an amount of time that many of you have, but it was very good for me to go through the process so that I could feel from the position of the applicant, and I certainly learned a tremendous amount, but you don't have a guidebook. You know, and I had some awareness and knowledge, and I don't want to sign up work for anybody here for doing sort of a guidebook of any sort, but, and maybe there is something since I applied, or, you know, I could be, you know, there might be something on the website that I'm not aware of, so please forgive me that, but if you kind of know, you know, these are the steps and process, even just a general feeling, I think that probably would be helpful. And then one other point that I had, in talking about the Community Preservation Commission, which I don't mean to beat a dead horse either, but the public at large doesn't really understand the funding. And I think a Cliff Notes version or reiteration, I think probably most people who go to town meeting are going to have an understanding, but particularly when there's school issues that come up, or when we come up with police, fire, roads, whatnot, I think the public needs to know more. And a social media campaign can be done that way, but that, you know, these funds can only be used for very specific purposes. Because every town meeting that I go to, there will be someone that stands up and says, why can't we take this out of CPA funds? And I think that probably should be addressed.
I actually agree, and I think there's more at town meeting than you think that don't understand
You might be
the
right.
process of
Yeah.
CPC. The other thing that I think that the community also believes that you come in with an application and you ask for 200,000, that you're gonna get 200,000. I think that we need to make it very clear that there are some financial steps, as you know, Greg had said, you know, skin in the game, and I've always been an advocate of that. It's not just a blank check, that you have a great cause, we understand, we agree with you, but we just can't give you 100% of what you have. That, and we've had many applicants like that over the years, and they didn't understand that, and then when they did, they actually came up with a percentage.
Can you give me an example of somebody that didn't have skin in the game? I just can't think of anybody offhand.
Smith Farm.
Yeah, but
Didn't when,
didn't Smith Farm
Oh,
come
but
in?
they did have.
was it Allen's
Yeah.
Park originally
Pickleball
that
court.
came in? That, I could be wrong. but
The
when they
pickleball
came in,
court?
wasn't that-
That's
Yeah,
this
there
year.
you go, thank you.
I think that was.
And
was it
not a shot at the
100%?
pickleball
I
courts.
don't know. I
Yeah, it was
could've-
around 200, but,
I thought it was 175, 200. Yeah.
but
Originally.
they had private funds from the Alleys Fund and then private funds that were given locally. So, and the piece about that is sort of like Edmonds Park, where you have someone in town locally who's watching that park. And I think maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be skin as far as financial purposes, but like Buddy Worcester overlooking the park, you know, someone who's there every day and mindful of what's going on. And
How about, as another example, and please remind me, that was it around 400,000 when we came up with the money for restoration here? I'm trying to remember.
Here?
Well, one of
Yes,
the,
here.
one of the asks was for 400,000.
Wasn't it for around
For the town
400,000?
hall.
Yeah.
Well,
I thought it was like total was 7, wasn't it?
in
at the end of the day?
Total, I mean, I
Yeah.
know there was
Yeah. I
a,
think there was one that was around
there were
400.
multiple.
And I know that it's all matter of
Application.
intertwining the money, but I think that was for the full amount. Could be wrong.
But
Well, yes.
initially, we didn't fund that for the full amount because we were short on money that year.
But
So
that
they had
was
to-
that, but
They had
the
to
point
phase
was
it.
They were asking for the full amount.
Yeah, and we didn't give it to them,
No.
which is good on us.
Would I be wrong to feel that that this board should have more involvement year-round in oversight of these projects? And, you know, what happens, Jim's on vacation, I get a call, hey, can you come down and sign for this, this rec? But, but has anybody really inspected oh yeah, it's done? Well, in the past, not including anybody in this room, things have been, oh yeah, this was done, and well, it wasn't done right. It was, so, and I know we always defer, well, we wanted historical to do it, I want this board, but we are the board that approves the funding, and I just think we need to get more involved in things. It's what our job is. It's not just to wave these things in. And I think we have a comprehensive overhaul we need to do of what we've been involved in, because we have hard choices. We say yes to everything, and we can't. As we talked about that last time. The numbers just aren't going to be there for, 12 years now that we're going to get the money from Shovelworks. At its latest, maybe sooner. But we really need to establish a direction going forward, I think, and a process by which all of this, because I just think so much has fallen through the cracks. I don't think we've done a very good job.
See, I disagree with you almost completely on that kind of stuff.
So give me some examples that have worked great.
Well-
That we got, I could, because I know what you're going to give me. You're going to, you used to laugh when I used to talk about the garden behind Queeset. Now, we all love that. Everybody's gone and had their prom pictures and their wedding pictures, and there's been all sorts of concerts there. But for what we paid there, okay? First, what we paid there, that was not built the way we told it would, the way we told it was going to be built. It's already has construction issues, and watch, that's going to need a big overhaul in about 5 years. Wrong type of nails were used, they're starting to corrode, they rock and roll, and the detail that were built, the carved ends, weren't done. Out here, the balustrade. I remember Tim and I were begging people that were employed by the town at the time, hey, why don't you let us, we have issues there, why don't you let us go over there and we'll show you. No. And then, the record was, the money was just paid. No, yeah, it was only $35,000, but that was crooked, it's already fallen apart, and that was built nowhere near what we were told. That was $5,000 worth of work. So, and that's just two of them, and I could go on all night, I don't want, but there's,
Yeah, but you can't go on all night because, we bought land that,
well, but that's, obviously we're not talking about that.
You know-
I'm talking about construction ends.
Yeah.
Land is land, that's
yeah,
not
I
to me.
understand, but you make it seem like we have never done anything good.
No, we've done great stuff, but I'm afraid,
Could you give us a couple of those since we're on television?
I think the
everything we've done, look at, Ed, please, don't get dramatic, okay, red light, no, look at, you know what? CPAs are, I've stood up for CPA, I think it's great, okay? But we don't have a lot of money coming in anymore. And I've been saying this for 4 or 5 years, we flag everything through, come on. When those times that I was arguing that, the Affordable Housing Trust shouldn't get more than their 10%, it wasn't because I'm anti-Affordable Housing Trust. Look at the stuff that I direct at Planning Board. We've created more affordable units than the Affordable Housing Trust has. But why are we taking, for example, this year, why are we taking an additional $90,000 out of our reserves when they still have a big chunk? And again, not anti-affordable housing, but I'm like, well, until there's some project that just wows us over that needs that big chunk of change, why don't we keep it under the umbrella of CPA? So I've just seen so much money wasted, and we don't have that much. We know towns, we know what's happening with the match, we know what the issue, and CPA's done great stuff, but too much, work has not been performed the way we told it was. I'm sorry, maybe it's because what I do for a living, but when I go to a bank and I need financing and I give them plans and specs and I say, this is what I'm gonna do it, and I need $400,000 for that, if I don't build it that way, their inspector comes out and shuts down the job and doesn't give us the money. That's all I'm talking about.
And that's the way it was, excuse me, that's the way it was.
I did not say CPA is not good. I think CPA is great.
in the-
Don't put words in my mouth.
In
Fran.
the initial years of the CPA, that's exactly what we did.
Right, and
We
what have I
need-
been screaming about for 3
We
years?
need
to get back
we need
to
to
that.
return to that, and
Exactly.
I agree with that 100%.
And if you think I'm saying anything other than that, then I'm not saying it clear enough. But that's what I'm saying.
Excellent.
I fully support CPA. I love CPA. I put in several hundred hours a year for CPA. And that's the reason I'm passionate about it, because we have a limited dollars. So when I see it just being tossed around,
Well, the second thing we need to do, and you've hit on this too, is we need to establish new priorities.
Absolutely.
So let's
Let's set priorities.
let's move on.
Yeah.
I would just like to add on to that, I don't want to keep beating that subject because I think you've said enough.
Dead horses are just all over the place.
It's not really a dead horse, though, because that had come up in the past, at past meetings I sat at. And it's a question, I think Greg makes a really good point, and it was always a question, who has the expertise to go out and review the projects and make sure they're done? So that's something you need to think about. Again, as you're developing your policies and who's going to do what and take what responsibilities. For example, in the past, Greg Gaylor would come and do the inspections of the historical work at the library and at Oak Sames Memorial Hall. It seems to me a shame that if Greg and Tim offered to go inspect the balustrade, that they weren't taken up on that. That was, again, a conversation this board had about holding that responsibility. So.
Well, perhaps if it comes from, let's say, recreation, then recreation has to be involved in that checkoff. If it's another,
Which
board,
they
then
were
it
for
has to be
Keach, for
yeah.
the
And for Alice Park too, I mean, you certainly kept us informed and,
But I think what needs to be part of the process isn't a call to Meredith or Jim or Greg, oh, we need you to come down and initial
so
this.
that's
for a
pretty
check.
simple. I
There
mean,
needs to be an
that's adding
inspection.
that process. That is just
During the
simply
course
part
of-
of the application process. They need to,
After town meeting,
Yeah.
you have a conversation,
Yeah.
decide who's going to do what. One of the steps that was added to the process a couple years ago was sitting down with the applicants after they received approval and putting a milestone,
Yep.
a project plan together with milestones. So we have those.
well, another thing that we could do, I know with rec, I don't know about the other boards, but CPA update is on for every month that we meet. Sometimes I have updates, sometimes I don't, but if something comes from rec, let's say, your project is on there. It's on there every month, and if there's an update to provide, they have to provide it. And then I think that takes it away from our board in a sense that maybe we don't have the expertise in certain areas, particularly if you're in at-large, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but they should be providing to that board, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's historical, recreation, open space, I don't know who it would provide to, but that's a simple way to create those checks and balances. And then that applicant is accountable to that board.
Seems to me it's a simple process, going back to what you said, Ed, it used to be done that way. Historical, land, recreation, affordable housing, whatever it may be, that each member of this committee has to be more proactive, and that responsibility should be brought forth to the meeting with the checkpoints and what's going on, either the history of the property or the completion of the work that's being done, funded by CPA. I mean, why can't that?
Yeah, or just add it to our agenda and say, you know, this
In each
applicant is coming in to
meeting?
give their update on their project. Simple.
And, you know, and another, we do this at planning board a lot, and Stephanie knows how, you know, site visits. Now, I get it, we're 9 people, not everybody can do it, some people do have lives outside of this room, but, you know, if there's a large project that's gonna take place over, say, 6 months, or, you know, a couple of visits out there, that also helps keep people honest, and we can check and make sure, wait a minute, you know, we were told that was gonna be, you know, X, Y, Z, and more, just get out of here and see what it's about, and have some accountability, and have, you know, again, a more comprehensive, effective game plan.
That would also kind of put the, I can't find the right word, I don't want to say onus, but I know there's an open historical project right now related to the railroad station. And I know that you had a meeting yesterday about that. So, and we're funding it. So you could have updated that if we had you on the agenda. So, I mean, that's another way that we can get information.
Or myself or Greg could. Because it's
But were you at the
It was
meeting?
with the Historical
No,
Society.
but I'm saying that we would, no, we weren't, but
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. And one of the proponent met with the staff member on the nitty-gritty of the plan, which finally came in.
Well, I think onus is an appropriate term. The onus should be on the applicant to update the boards. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think rather than a
Yeah.
staff person updating, it might be helpful to
Right.
have the project proponent.
Add it to agenda items so it doesn't get lost through the pieces, and that becomes part of an agenda each week. I mean,
And, you
each
know
time we
what-
meet.
What we could do is have just project update.
Yeah.
And list all the projects. If there's
Exactly.
no update.
Yep.
And then that makes it easy, because back at the office, what we can do
Yep.
is communicate out and say,
Yes.
do you have any updates? And if it's been quite a while, it's
Yep.
like, well, come to the board
Yes,
and let us know why.
perfect.
What's
the
going
update,
on?
I agree with the applicant being able to do that, but how do we know that it's to the standard that we have paid?
So I want to go back, and I don't want to go down a deep hole, but I'm not sure a lot of money has been wasted. There are certain projects that may not have been completed to particular standards, but right now, I mean, any of the projects that we've been involved with overseeing in the time we've been, you know, Wayne's been responsible and I've been there, we make sure the work has been done and completed.
Right, but if there's not
but
plans
you're
and
right, if there's-
specs,
that
it's
you're right.
completed to what,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I don't think we have to go backwards. I think moving
No,
forward.
but
if there's
I'm just saying,
yeah.
because that's just to the point I was bringing
Yeah.
up before.
I mean, like some of the projects, like Alley's Park, we'd go through, I would frequently bring back the list of things, you know, if Ann came in with an invoice for certain equipment or whatever, make sure that was part of the original application. I think some of the projects have been less technical in nature,
Right.
that have been invoiced over
Yeah.
the last 2 years.
I think it would be a good idea at each planning board, each CPA meeting, a bullet point, quick
Yep.
update on every project.
Agreed.
Doesn't have to be huge, but just, you know, and then another issue, as we were sitting here talking, I'm thinking about like Frothingham Park. We've got a few out there. There's one that
Yeah.
escapes me.
Yeah.
I wonder if we need a time limit on these things, right? Because isn't there something that's been out there for like 3 or 4 years? And it's like,
The Wheaton Farm Barn.
yeah, so it's like, you know what, at some point, clear the books, doesn't mean they can't come back, but just to,
Wayne and I were talking about, or maybe it was Jim and I who were talking about that probably makes a lot of sense, and it helps the accountant too.
Well,
because
and
you
in
just-
administrative purposes, just keeping a running log that's gonna be there. And then once it's completed, we know you can just cross it off by keeping that. And I think it'll give us all a sense of a better grasp on what projects are out there, what have been completed, even on the community front, to be able to speak to it. These are the ones that we've done recently, because there is this sort of
yeah.
what's in limbo and what's not.
Yeah.
And for the folks that watch us on TV, give them an idea of what we're talking about. Oh, you know, PR, because they'll, didn't know about that, you know.
Yeah.
And the Frothingham one's been out there for so long, most people have forgotten about it.
The Frothingham Park.
The park, yeah, that's what, 3 years, right?
Yeah.
2 years, I think.
Yeah,
the
This
gazebo?
will be the third.
This is the third,
It's
yeah.
going on the third.
But there's a good point, you know, and again, not picking on Frothingham Park, but, you know, priorities change for a town or for a board, and it's, you know, we may, hey, geez, we could really use that money somewhere else, and you know, or maybe this board changes
Well,
over,
it
and,
raises the question of how critical was the project
Mm,
if the
Right.
funding's not being used.
good point.
Do you have a follow-up on that, Frothingham? Is that
No,
something-
we don't have project updates for tonight.
So you assign someone to check in with the.
You.
I think Wayne and I were just talking about that.
I nominate Lee.
Doing a tickler, but what I will say, Lee, rather than trying to give an ad hoc update on the projects,
Yeah.
so we will do exactly, Lee and I will work, Jim and I will work together and make sure that on the agenda, all the projects are listed.
Yeah. Good, like it.
So what should our priorities be? And how should we allocate the funds? Because what we've done, particularly recently, but even in the olden days, is wait for people to come to us. But when we first got started, we sat down and said, you know, here are the needs of the town. We funded the affordable housing study. We funded the historic preservation plan.
Survey reports.
Yeah.
well, isn't that kind of ties in with number 4, right? The reason we talked about a public input was, let's see where the town's at with this. I think a great idea would be, you know, schedule this meeting, see if people come in, and then certainly members of this board, you know, we can brainstorm. And I got 4 or 5 ideas I'd like to throw out there, you know, other people see what they say, and if nothing else, we just start to have a conversation, not necessarily about specific projects, but specific type of projects. It can be about a specific project, but, you know, that's kind of an underserved function, I think, of this board, and we certainly should get some input from the town, you know, or try to anyways, you know,
And one of the questions that came up, or the suggestions, I think, I don't remember if I raised it or one of the members raised it, but, you know, do you even have to go out and solicit applications in any given year? Do you have to fund projects in any given year? And there's nothing in the statute that
No.
requires that. What's required is, if you don't, the monies are put in reserve.
right.
In the, we adopted it in Easton in 2001, as I recall. And in 1999, 2000, we had to go through a couple of steps. And of course, I was there with John Grant and the attorney there, Dick.
Yeah.
In any case, we were up there making signs and stuff like that. And how did we sell the program? Open space. That's what we really said was the big selling factor for this. And I just want to mention it because, you know, I'm supporting good projects that come, proposals that come in and everything, but I get up in the morning for open space. Sorry about that, it's just who I am, okay? So I'm a member at large, but I have a bias there, and I just want to remind anyone who's watching on television, and for the rest of you here, we essentially sold this and had to get it on the ballot, and we had to get it through town meeting. And it wasn't that easy at that time, and what we sold it as a major objective of this group was setting aside open space for future generations. And, you know, the other work that we do, it's interesting, it's important, but you know what I get up in the morning for.
Well, and think of it, I've probably been on this board 8 years, 7, 8, 9 years. And early on, you know, you were chasing Joe Gill around town. But it seemed to, you know, after the Gill property, and maybe, I don't know, did we get discouraged as a board or something? But there's, you know, we have 2 priority parcels from the original 3. One absolutely is in play, can be in play. So maybe we need to get back to what we did. And, you know, what I liked about this board, you know, I remember the first time I think it was Lee said, this is a dynamic group. You know, it was a really good cross-section of the town. And, you know, we all have our connections, different connections, we all have people. So, you know, maybe we need to actively, you know, get out there and start working on that again. Because, yeah, I don't think anybody's, you know, we see it at planning board all the time. People scream about, you know, oh, there's too many houses, there's too many this or that. You know, and we always say, well, you know, if the town wants to buy everything, great, they can, but I don't think they have the money for it. But if, you know, we should probably be creative and go out there and go after some of these pieces, you know.
Just piggybacking on the open space, I know when I first started on the board, we had a map, and Ed and Lee, you could attest to it, that we were trying to connect the dots from the Hockomock up through, and Wilbur Farm was a big part of it, and coming around the high school, that it was actually, there's a lot more progress has been made, well, not made recently, but it's pretty close, that people don't realize that could exist.
The Gill property was sort of a key. But that brings up a good point, because that's also mentioned in the open space and recreation plan. And the other thing that's all too often forgotten by the general public, at least, is the Envision Easton plan, the master plan. Would give us plenty of ideas of where we could use our money. And I would hate to see that go by the board, because I think the master plan.
No, it's a great working tool, you're right.
Yeah.
Brought out every meeting at planning board. So.
Good.
In every report, Stephanie does. So. But no, but you're right. There's a. It's fine. We were just looking at it the other day. I was looking. I want to cut some new paths in the Beaver Brook thing, and you know, you forget that we have some great tools out there. And we don't have well, anyways, we should go after some of that.
Well, I think the other side of that, we talked about this in the last meeting, is that the boards that we work with, historical, Concom, you know, I think recreation, we should urge them to do the same thing that we're talking about now, which is to look for ideas, to look forward for needs, to start bringing those to us as suggestions that we could follow up on.
And to piggyback on that, when we have this meeting, we should definitely send notes to all of those boards, because you know, and ask, you know, not just the chair, it would be nice to have the whole board come and participate. You know, rec and historical and Concom, since they're and the Affordable Housing Trust, since they're the recipients.
So that's the priority setting meeting?
Yeah, well, you know, well, yeah, no, not so, well, more, yeah, well, what does the town want, right, yeah, exactly, yeah. We have to come up with a better name.
Well,
Yeah,
Can we call it a shred?
public input meeting, tell us what you want.
I think that was already trademarked.
We've been working towards that meeting with these meetings to try to set the stage so that that can be done in a more productive process, rather than just a meeting that hangs there.
And we'd probably do it in the fall, right? I mean, it's too late, you can't do it, this town's empty in the summer, right? Doesn't it make sense to?
Everybody's at the
Well,
town
so
pool.
if that's something the board wants to do, which makes a lot of sense, then maybe you should talk about that tonight as well, and kind of
Right.
pick a date and get that out there. And then if the board's going to continue to meet month to month, which I've heard is desired, then you can start talking about how to promote that meeting, who else to involve, and where it's going to be held and all that. All the details.
Wouldn't it be great?
It would be great, I'm sorry, Greg, it would be great if, too, because if you want a room, and you want to do it in the fall, we should probably book it now, because over the summer, the school offices aren't.
Let's pick a date a week after Labor Day, and then on Monday night at town meeting, when all those other slides of CPA projects that we talked about are going up, we can put the name, hey, come, tonight we can come up with a pithy name, and we can get it up there on the screen.
Well, going back to town meeting, that's a great idea, but going back to town meeting for a second, when our articles come up, is that the opportunity for a very, very brief, here's why we're asking for these things, this is what you can spend CPA money on?
There's already,
That's a
yes,
great-
that's the very first slide. This
Okay.
is the second year, at least, that slide is front and
Okay.
center and will be discussed.
Is that for you, Jim?
We can talk about that tonight. That's part of what we're going to be doing.
Town meeting, we should be better organized than we have been in the past, I think. The assignment of speakers, backup speakers and whatnot, if we've approved it, and I think it's a good idea, the selectmen have approved it, we've sent it in there. We've had pretty good reception in those things in past. The notable exception was the Oak Sands Memorial Hall.
Parking lot.
Funding for the parking,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not so sure that that wasn't fit to have a struggle a bit. I'd like to see someone go in there like a well driller and go into that soil behind the hall for a few $1,000s and just find out where the ledge is, for crying out loud, know in advance how far back we can drill. I mean, how far back we can dig in there and make a parking space out of it. It's not that complicated. Am I right, Greg? Should be able to find out where the
Yeah, well, that's part of the funding last year. And look, I'll take responsibility for last year. We were too busy at planning board. Build consensus, and Stephanie, I kept kicking. I go, maybe we should just pull this. We should pull this. Oh, let's go ahead. And we saw the neighbors didn't feel they hadn't been given any info. Well, that's on me. We were overworked, and but part of that funding last year was not to exceed 150. That included going in and doing that and drilling, because you can't design. But anyways, that's so. Labor Day is September 2nd. So like 2 weeks after Labor Day, maybe. Everybody gets back to town, right?
Do you want to do it an evening, weekend?
So we're thinking in like one of the gyms or something, or one of the, like an RO
Personally, I like the cafetorium.
Yeah, that's a good space.
at center school?
Space.
At FLO,
At center
right?
school.
Isn't that what you mean?
I'm teasing. I'm
Good
just
God.
teasing.
No, at the Richardson Olmsted, right?
Yeah. At
I
RO.
always get the order wrong. That can hold easily 200 people. We had quite a crowd there for one of the meetings. We just need to make sure that someone.
I think it has to be at night, because people, that time of year, people, kids, schools.
And
Right.
they're starting fall activities and everything.
Are we thinking the public's gonna come?
Yeah.
We're hoping.
Yeah.
Well, when we did public access for Envision Easton, people showed up.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
you're not gonna get, you're not gonna get the crowd you're gonna get when
You're
they're
not gonna
voting
get
on the
200
school, but
Right.
hopefully you get 100 people,
Yeah.
Okay.
if hey, if you get enough, even if you get a couple dozen people, if they care and you just want some ideas.
Okay.
And,
We want each representative board.
The whole board?
Well, we had a
This
list of,
board.
we had a list of stakeholders for the Envision Easton, so I didn't
I'll go pull
fight
that,
the,
Envision
yeah,
Easton stakeholders.
right.
Pencil.
An idea on that too, and it again keeps the master plan.
and I'm years removed from being a school parent, but the schools must have some sort of online newsletter. Because it would be nice to get some of the young parents.
The principals do send out a
Yeah, so
newsletter.
let's throw it in there too.
Yep.
And
like blast.
Yeah.
that's right.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I just assume you're going to throw it out there.
Price is right.
Okay.
And following up on a conversation, I don't know, I think it was this board.
What's up with that?
We're talking, saying how we weren't allowed, remember under the previous regime, we weren't allowed, we being board members of boards, weren't allowed to have a social media presence, which, I understood. But maybe it's time that CPA has a very, simple one, but if nothing else talks about our projects. Throw it on Facebook, throw it on Instagram, right? Throw it on Twitter, whatever these old bodies can handle for technology. But, and, because then that gives us another place to put it out there. Because, you know, because all the negative stuff gets online, you know, we need some positive stuff to get online. And if we're not online, I mean, it is 2019.
Does anyone suggest a date? You're talking about a couple weeks after
How about
Labor Day.
Thursday, the,
19th?
is that, yeah.
Sounds good.
Thursdays seem to be a night you get good response from.
That could take the place of the
And
September.
we haven't come up with a name on this, right?
Yes, yeah.
I'm sorry?
We haven't come up with a name on
I
this.
have a real good one, CPA Public Input Meeting, really catchy.
Ooh.
I'm putting it in my book as massive CPA meeting.
Massive.
Massive, I love it.
It could be massive.
CPA wants you.
Tell us what
Massive.
you think.
Yeah, exactly. 7 PM?
Yeah.
Location to be determined, right?
How do you want to set it up? But you want to focus the input so that we get it all.
Do you wanna
With,
do like roundtables with
Ye-
leaders at each?
I think we give a history of what projects have been done, you know, real quick. And say, okay, hey, it's now that
wait.
it's 18 years later, what kind of projects, what do you guys
Start
want to say?
first, of course, with what is CPA and what.
Yeah,
you've
of course,
done,
yeah,
History of projects.
Brief, brief
yeah,
though.
So-
Right, oh, yeah.
yeah, quick,
Yes.
a
I love
quick
it.
PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, just quickly, and we do have the slide, I'm sorry, I'm digressing for a minute here, but Wayne did spend a little bit of time putting together the
Yay,
running
Wayne.
slide that will roll at town meeting while people are being seated of all the is a number, almost all the CPA projects that have been funded over the years.
Or breaks of it, yeah.
Yeah.
CPA reboot, no, you don't
Fun.
reboot, that sounds like it's bad.
Oh, that's
Reboot.
You
good.
don't want reboot.
Refresh.
Reboot, I like reboot myself, that's good.
It's not, doesn't have a negative connotation to it?
No, everything needs a reboot.
Can I get 10% of the gate?
Could we have one of the public meetings for the Envision Easton had the open space, historical, blah, you know,
Oh, that's right,
a
right,
a
at
sep- a
tables,
separate round table where you'd
right,
go to,
yep,
and then you could
That's
maybe go to 2 out of 3, or,
right.
Yeah, you're right,
And then you
rotate
have
it,
a-
that's a good
Yeah,
idea,
rotate
rotate
it,
it,
yeah.
sure.
Facilitator from one of the members of the board, is a facilitator at each of the tables.
That's how Envision Easton was set up.
Right,
yes.
it's one of the sessions, that one at the high school. Cafeteria.
Yeah,
Cafeteria, that's a cafeteria.
And we should start having beer after the meetings.
Yes.
Or whatever, or wine, or whatever, you know, under the legal limit.
So is that, again, facilitated, roundtables, broken out by the 3 categories.
Really need tables afterwards. Like people are, I don't know. I think that's a little protracted. Well,
What,
drawn
having
out.
roundtables?
yeah, I mean,
'Cause I enjoyed it with the Envision Easton. I thought it was really.
but the Envision Easton was just it was a different, it was really a brainstorming, you know, where do we want to go? What do we want to do? Is this,
Isn't that what you're asking, just for people's input on?
Right. If
And
you
one
try to
person
do
per
it,
table, that's what we had,
if you try to do it as a whole meeting, it
directed it.
it's too much?
doesn't work.
Okay.
And, I mean, we don't have
Just a
to, you know,
one-way,
well, hopefully this isn't the only
process.
time we meet before then, so we could, you know, we can give it some thought and digest it and work on it in the next coming meetings.
I think we need to make a distinction between priorities and specific projects.
I'm so hesitant on priorities. I know,
Maybe
I get it.
direction, maybe direction. is a better
Direction,
word.
yeah, that's a
Direction, I
better
feel
word,
better.
yeah.
I like direction.
Better word than priorities.
Because we're just, because the theme is, we're just checking in. It's been 18
Yeah.
years.
Yep.
A lot of people that would have been involved in this have moved on, right? And we have new folks in town, and, you know, we should,
Can we come up with some signage? And we could plunk on,
You have administrative funds that you.
oh,
use.
you know, a CPA meeting or reboot or something, lawn signs.
As long as they go on lawns.
Only if someone tells me what the S'mores Love Project is.
Yeah,
I
I've
found
Googled
out
it, I've been able
today.
to figure it out.
I found out today.
Oh, wait a second.
It's Girl Scouts.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why
good.
can't I, it
Girl
doesn't show up
Scouts, it's
online?
just an awareness of, just
know
a
what it
nice
is, yeah.
campaign on their behalf.
Yeah, it has no repeat posters, each one's
Yep.
unique.
Yep.
Yeah,
I couldn't find,
Yep.
it even had a
It's
hashtag, I couldn't find it.
Just a happiness campaign.
it's wonderful. I love it.
Yep.
But yeah, we had a logo for
Yeah,
Envision
signs that
Easton.
went out before the first Batman
So-
meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's to get people to go, what is this?
Yep.
It worked, Greg.
It's been driving me nuts for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
We could
No,
advertise,
no.
free money, come to the CPA meeting.
There you go.
That's a really good one, Meredith.
I had such a good follow-up for that, but it involves the names. When the cameras are off, I'll throw it out there.
We should get some lawn signs. I mean, if we're gonna really promote this,
Well, maybe we get the DPW, we can get the electronic message board. We use that.
Yeah, sure, we'll do
Turn it in.
Put some
Get it,
lawn
pry
signs,
it
a
from
little
their
logo
hands.
would be
We're able to
nice.
use it.
Do we have a logo? We need a contest, a logo contest, quick before school's closed.
Ed, take care of that. You could borrow the Bluebird.
Yeah, we could do that, or we could take the one from Envision Easton.
The Boo Bird? What's a Boo Bird?
Conservation Commission has a logo.
Yeah.
Oh.
Historical Commission has a flag.
I have a box of Envision Easton pins.
Well, let's talk a minute about town meeting then. What's your preference on that? Again, the last couple of times the selectmen have been reading, as they do with all the other articles, they read the articles and then do you
Well,
want?
that's their job.
That's their
They have
job,
to read the
right,
articles.
Yeah,
And then, I think last year, we just had the slides, and unless there was a question, it just stood. And I believe in previous years, there have been presentations. I think this is going to be a very long town meeting. And these are the
Really
last
exciting.
items on the warrant. So, but I like Jim's idea. Someone has to be there to ask questions. I mean, you could have, and the board votes for these, the board votes to advance them, and I think this is what you were getting at, Lee, is the board should be up there kind of promoting them. I mean, you voted to advance them, so it doesn't hurt to get up there and even just read.
I think you should be-
Just read the article from the slide.
Well, but you're, I mean, the selectmen have to read it, right?
Right.
So I think, and
They-
and
well,
you're
they're
right, 'cause it's
reading
gonna be a
it.
long night, and by the time we get to it,
Yeah.
so, I think we have to be ready to, like what I go up, when it's playing board, I go up with you and I are in the front row.
Yeah.
We sit there unless we have to get up. You and Jim should do the same, or whoever should do the same thing. That way, because in years past, the question would come up and then there's kind of this awkward
Right.
silence,
It
and
did
then,
not
and I think that kind of that hurts the credibility. We need to be ready to get right up and go, answer the question or sell it or,
And
whatever.
I really think it probably should be a board member. I will be there, I will
Okay.
answer if it gets beyond for whatever reason, and I need to. But I think you're right, Greg, you need to be able to answer the question immediately without looking around for who's going to respond.
right. And I will be there. So I will sit in the front.
Okay.
We've done everything on the agenda so far except next meeting. So, want to look ahead?
Well, when I meet in June, I think we mentioned we should be meeting regularly. Should we meet on site of some place where we have a project going?
Can we do that?
I don't know, can we, may we?
It has, okay, because this is an open meeting,
Yes.
you have to hold your meeting somewhere
And,
where the public is welcome to attend as well.
gotcha.
And it's
It has to
accessible.
be, right.
Yeah, and if, I mean,
right.
we're gonna be working on administrative stuff, right? We should just meet here. And then we can always schedule a
It's a nice thought,
site
But
at
I
some
think
point.
at some point that makes,
Sure,
you know, could it
sure.
be the Tufts Farm, could it be?
Well, you could do something at the Queeson House is now accessible, right?
Oh, yeah.
On the first floor, or,
Queeson House is accessible throughout, there's an elevator,
yeah,
so
You
it's,
do it at the housing authority, but the work hasn't started yet, so it's kind of,
yeah. I mean, that's kind of I mean, you're right, it is administrative, but
Good
You're
thing to look at
showcasing
a
one of the
project
projects
that
at the same
we've done
time.
something with, and there would be, for inclement weather, we'd have an opportunity to get undercover. I don't know if at the Tufts Farm there is any such thing, or if we
oh,
have anything.
not suitable for
No.
an
Not
open meeting,
suitable,
no.
but that would be an interesting one.
At least
that would be an
not
interesting one to
attend.
tour.
Interesting one too, I'd like to take a look at that place, and Oak Saint Memorial Hall, could someone give us a little idea, show us, okay, here we've done this, here we've done that, and then invite anybody from the public that would like to join us, probably would be overwhelmed, but these meetings are open to the public. Just talking out loud.
Well, it's,
13th, the 20th, next month?
The 20th doesn't work for me, I have an ongoing commitment
Okay.
now on the third Thursdays of the month.
Okay, well,
13th works for me, works for me.
Fine with me.
okay.
So where are we meeting? What do we decide?
We're
Well,
gonna be here.
yeah, we'll be here for
Thursday.
this time.
that's the second Thursday.
I can't wait till we meet in the middle of the football field.
Does it work?
Meet where, Ed?
The middle of the football field?
That was the only
I would
nay,
like
so.
I was gonna say, do it after commencement, so there'll be chairs there. Do they set up in the in the?
No, they do it at Frothingham, that's tradition, unless Wes
Oh,
has changed it.
Frothingham Park.
Yeah,
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
After commencement, we can visit Frothingham Park.
my dog and I visit there every day.
A site visit,
Yeah, site visit.
okay.
Thursday, the 13th at 5:30 is the barbecue at Oak Saints Memorial Hall, if you want to stop by.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Oh, it is?
Thursday the 13th?
June 13th.
How many hot dogs can I eat in an hour and a half?
Wanna go
Hmm.
the 27th?
Is it open to the public?
It is, you
Yeah.
prefer an RSVP.
Well,
but
you
yeah,
could do the
it's
20,
Yeah.
27th is good for me too, if you want.
27th is good for me.
Not for me, but
Well, does that preclude us
it's not really a conflict.
having a meeting at 7 if there's a barbecue at 5:30?
You never start on time.
Says the lover of burgers.
Did you say you'll never start on time?
No, they don't start on time, you
Oh,
know.
that's
so.
too bad.
No,
because-
I can do the 27th.
That's a good event, too. I mean,
But
Push
it's
the
been-
27th?
We're supposed to be there,
yeah.
just
There-
for purposes, all of us should go to it,
Yeah, we should all go, and that could be our tour of the building.
It rained last year,
It did.
remember that?
yeah.
So are we doing the 27th instead? Is that what?
Yeah, why not? Can I make a suggestion? If we go on the 27th, let's skip the July meeting, then come back June and do June and August. That should work, right?
Sure.
Depending on how much
That's a good
progress you make at the next
Oh,
meeting.
we made progress tonight, so I think we'll be
So
fine.
June 27th is what we're doing,
I
right?
think that's a
Yeah.
good idea.
June 27th, okay. And then no July meeting?
Yeah, so everybody come with their ideas on the 27th of what we should do at the meeting. And we can put it all together and
Yep.
fine tune it in August.
Well,
I won't be here.
right,
Yeah.
yes.
And that is good for me because in July I'm gone pretty much. I'm heading to Montana for a while, so.
Yes, Montana.
Okay.
Does it look as bad as Texas did last Friday?
Well, it's, if you've seen the news, California is getting tons of snow.
Really?
Yeah.
In the mountains?
It just,
We had a sunny day
apparently
today.
they've closed Yosemite National Park.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, so it's serious. and that's just gonna head on over.
Each weather pattern, my
Yeah.
garden's way behind.
My
Yeah.
trees are too.
I haven't put anything in the ground yet.
If I could suggest, let's adjourn.
I make them, yeah,
This weekend,
So moved.
so that's
All in favor?
yes.
All right, thank you.
So
We are adjourned.